So we'll go ahead and start our discussion. If you don't have copies, there's some copies out there of the agenda and the documents that we're going to discuss. The agenda is really just one item. Hello. Without a whole bunch of folks around the table, Jenny and any of you guys that want to move up, you can. But you can certainly sit out there also. So I'd been asked earlier about why just mobile homes, so I kind of want to address that, and if you guys want to chime in, because this is really meant to get your input and feedback. For two reasons, really. Mobile homes aren't per se covered under building code, so we want to adopt that into our current code. We currently inspect them under property maintenance code, but building code as like a normal frame building doesn't apply to a trailer. Trailer is constructed under different regulations stipulated by HUD. That's one reason why we want to adopt these codes or ordinances. And the second is because mobile homes present a different kind of problem than apartments or houses. There's several around town that are either abandoned or unoccupied, or some just in poor shape to begin with. And there's really nothing for us to stand on. There are nuisance regulations, but if they're just there, right now, as long as the grass is mowed and there aren't critters inside them, and you know, they're not a nuisance per se, but they sure appear to be a nuisance. I'm just going to be frankly honest with you. Those are the reasons why mobile homes. So I'm going to start off by talking about these documents. Mark, Robbie, Gina, do you have anything you want to add before I kick it off? There's really four things that I had presented to this committee. We have two members who aren't here this evening who can't be here. And then we have an aldermanic rep, Dr. Gary Smith, who's not here. But they, him, Barb Abashan, and Earl Wilson also sit on this commission in addition to Robbie, Mark, and Gina. The first document is called Manufactured Housing Code. This is an addition to the building code, would be an addition to the building code and improve our compliance with 2012 International Residential Codes regarding manufactured homes, foundation systems, building service equipment, anchoring, and accessory buildings. It would also impact any alteration, addition, or repair. So this is basically, if you look at the residential building code, which is a book about this thick, there's a section at the back that's maybe 12 pages that talks about mobile homes, and I'd like to adopt that into code. We could then base any alterations we ask for there to be completed on that code, okay, versus just property maintenance code. Right now we go into a house, let's say, and there's, I'm trying to think of a perfect example, but I don't think there is one, exposed wiring. I mean, there's something in the residential code or electrical code that allows us to require that to be fixed. With a mobile home, we go in and there's improperly, some of the older ones have aluminum wiring, and there's improperly or improper alterations to that wiring. This code allows us to stipulate to that mobile homeowner, you need to fix that, because it really is unsafe. The aluminum wiring is unsafe, particularly if you're not using the right metal to make any alterations to that. Chip was going to be here so he could explain that better, but that's part of what this first document is. This is a basic code for mobile home alterations and additions in addition to a few other items. It does not impact the constructions of mobile homes themselves. So mobile homes are constructed under a code stipulated by HUD now, but prior to 1976, they were constructed under basically a recreational vehicle code. So that's why some of these older ones that aren't in too good a shape, there's no code that adapts to them, and we want to get this piece into there. It was a long, drawn-out explanation, but any questions on that particular sheet? It basically brings an additional, I don't know, 12 or 15 pages of code into our existing code book. I have a copy of it right here. So it's manufactured housing. It's Appendix E to the 2012 International Residential Code Book. Manufactured homes uses dwellings. So it brings these pages into our existing ordinance and code. Okay?
And we have a copy of that, you said?
No copy of this. You have a copy of the proposed addition to ordinance. This is put out by the International Code Compliance. And you can certainly look over it. It's available online also. You can't print it offline because, of course, they want you to buy the book. But we have a subscription and we have the books here. So, but you can certainly take a look at that. Some of it reads like stereo instructions.
How many pages?
Maybe 18. And really all that does is hold mobile homes as accountable as every other structure in the city. You know, we hold them accountable now to property maintenance codes and international plumbing and electric code and mechanical code, but this brings the actual trailer into the code book. Questions on any of that?
Without looking at what you just passed out, I don't know.
Well, I mean, you can certainly look at it, but I don't know that you're going to develop any questions off of it because it's just.
So what you're saying is anybody that owns a trailer that was maybe for 1976, they are out of compliance as soon as you put this code into effect?
No. This would be for all trailers per se.
Mm-hmm.
It would not mean that if your trailer was pre-1976 and it had aluminum wiring, that we would force you to change that to updated wiring. However, if we go in...
I'm sorry, you said you would force us to, or you
would not.
Okay.
Would not force that. However, if we were to go in and there would be poor, let's say jerry-rigging for lack of a better term. You know, you use some new wire and you put it in with the old wire and it's not very well done, you would have to fix that. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Now,
Yes.
that would go into like a building code for like everything else that's in the city limits, right? Because I have a problem because my brother just had a house and we got it as a partner ready.
Mm-hmm.
And the building inspector come inspected it and told us we had to paint the end gables 3 stories up in the air to rent the downstairs apartment. You know what I'm saying? If my trailer ain't
I mean,
pretty
tonight
enough,
we're
you don't
talking
make me
about
paint it.
mobile homes. I
Well,
can
that's
certainly
fine.
talk
If
with
you're
you.
adopting this
I can
into the
certainly
building
talk with
code
you
of the city, that's
after
part
the.
of it.
I can certainly talk with you after the meeting on that. This has nothing to do with anything besides mobile homes.
Right.
If you, tonight isn't the end conversation. So if you have further questions, you can let me know. But every other building has codes already.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Next, we have, it's got Exhibit B at the top of it, but it's the mobile home occupancy inspection. If you've had something inspected, it's Beckerman, right?
Mm-hmm.
Was just discussing, you know what the occupancy inspection looks like, what kind of things we check. This is kind of a mobile home version of that. It's not much different except for there's just a few things that are different with mobile homes. Like number 2 under fire and safety says proper egress shall be provided per 24 CFR 3280.105. If you want to read that, I have a copy of it, but basically that says with mobile homes there have to be a certain distance you can get out. And that's the case with homes when they're constructed. But mobile homes prior to 1976 mostly, but even some since then, don't have either the proper size window or the doors are too far apart. I couldn't tell you if there's any in our city that exist, but that's just a good example of why there would be a different occupancy inspection for mobile homes versus regular houses. We can kind of go through these, but I'll go through them real quick. Smoke detectors, that's standard. The number 2 there, the proper egress, that's very specific to mobile homes. House numbers, that's every building, that's standard. Floor, wall, and roof systems shall be structurally sound, secured, and free of holes and intact. We check that at other houses, or I say houses, other structures, but with some of the mobile homes, and we've had to make one uninhabitable, and there's a second that we have an approved occupancy on. There were spots in the floor that I could, if I jumped hard enough, I'd go through. They were spongy, I guess, for lack of a better term. Okay? So the floor is there, the floor material, but it's not safe. And this would allow us to, tell the owner, you've got to fix that. Okay? Exterior doors, including sliding glass, be in good working order and have operable locks. All missing or broken glass replaced. That's standard. All windows and their operators should be in good working condition. Missing or broken glass will be replaced and screens shall be provided. That's standard on a house. Screens don't necessarily have to be in place, but they should be there. They should be in place, but if you say, we took them down, we're going to put them, we have storm windows, for lack of a better term, that's okay also. Bottom board shall be rodent-proof throughout and sealed. Material used for repairs shall be at least equivalent to the original. No visible pest infestation shall be present. So besides the floor itself, underneath that would be a bottom board that should be protected from moisture and protected from entry of pests. So that's different than on a normal house. Insulation shall be in good condition and missing insulation shall be replaced. Next page, where damage due to active water leaks is apparent, repairs shall be completed. Pretty standard even on a normal structure. Anchors properly installed and free of damage, that's very specific to a mobile home. Date plate should indicate compliance with the proper wind zone and climatic zone. These are going to be on post-HUD trailers. If it's pre-HUD, some of those don't even have a data plate. So at that point, we would have to take the owner's word for it or have you do some research. Some of those older ones don't. They all have a, for lack of a better term, a VIN number, but sometimes that thing's hard to find. If it was able to be found by the inspector, we could reference that and check it. The newer ones have a plate. It's either on the chassis or by the electric box or in the closet of the main bedroom, and we would just look to see that it was proper for this area, which this isn't a high wind zone area, so it should be fine. Deck, porch, and stairway meet standards if present. We check that on every structure, but a lot of these mobile homes have a porch that's kind of pushed up to them and there aren't the proper rails or guards. Some do, but some don't. That'd be just the same thing we check at a house we go up to. Electrical system shall be complete and any hazardous conditions, including loose connections or covers, shall be corrected. We just talked about that. With the older ones and aluminum wiring, that's more prevalent. So that would have to be corrected.
Not replace necessarily, just make sure it's properly connected to any dissimilar metals.
Correct. Electric panel shall be accessible and properly installed, complete with required breakers or fuses and unused openings properly covered. That's standard at any home. Aluminum connectors shall be connected to approved listed devices, kind of what Martin was alluding to, not illuminating to. So you can't use a dissimilar metal there. Grounding conductors shall be properly secured to the correct location and or connector on fixtures and devices. Ground fault circuit interrupters installed and functional ground rod installed. That's standard on most houses. We check for GFCIs. We check for a ground rod outside. Plumbing system shall include a bathroom which provides privacy and includes a bathroom, bathtub or shower, a toilet, and a sink. Plumbing system shall include a kitchen sink and approved operating hot water heater. If you have questions, say them, but most of this is pretty standard. Plumbing fixtures shall be securely attached in working condition, connected properly, and freeze protected where necessary. If it's under the trailer within the insulation, you're fine, or if there's skirting, you're fine. But no skirting, no insulation, that becomes a problem. All plumbing fixtures shall be properly vented and provided with approved workable traps. The hot water heater shall have a relief valve with sufficient room to operate and a minimum 3/4 inch discharge extended beneath the home. Draining pipes shall be complete, properly supported, and not constitute a hazard. And there shall be no leaks throughout the entire plumbing system. For the most part, that's the same stuff we check on a house, except for those things I pointed out that are applicable to mobile homes. On HVAC, all heating and cooling devices shall be properly installed and secured in place. Couple houses or mobile homes I've been out to, the water heater's falling through. It's leaning. That's one of the points that I wanted to make there. Number 2, homes with central heating and cooling shall have an operable thermostat. That tends to be a problem sometimes. Ductwork shall be in place, sealed and in good condition. Air registers shall be operable and secured in place, and laundry facilities must have a vent present. Gas furnace and or water heater vents shall be properly installed and secured to the appliance. So those have to be vented. Proper return air to heating and air conditioning units shall be provided. So there should be return air vents, and they should have covers on them, vents, covers. Range hoods and bathroom exhaust fans shall be in good working condition. All gas appliances shall be connected with an approved shutoff valve, and approved listed carbon monoxide detectors shall be properly located, installed, and operable.
Question.
Yes, ma'am.
You just said that approved listed carbon monoxide detectors shall be properly located, installed, and operable. Isn't that just for
If you have gas
natural
appliances.
gas furnace? If you have an
Or a water
all-electric
heater.
mobile home, oh yeah, if it's all electric, then you don't need the carbon monoxide.
Correct.
Right, okay.
I got a
Yes, ma'am.
range hoods and bathroom exhaust fans. Does that mean we have to have range hoods?
There should be a range hood. We've made stipulation before. If everything else is in order and you're just missing a range hood, and there's, we've given out occupancies before without that one thing. Same thing, if you don't have a bathroom exhaust fan, but you have a window in the bathroom, that can be opened. Because sometimes I've been there and there's a nail in the corner to hold it in place. This has to be opened, preferably a fan. I mean, the exhaust fan's not just for odor, it's also for ventilation.
But if you do have a window, that's all right.
Correct, as long as it's operable.
Right.
So we currently have an occupancy inspection process with an occupancy inspection form we use for all facilities. This form would be specific to mobile homes, as they present some different conditions and challenges that aren't present in other type facilities. This form could be used for both post-HUD mobile homes and pre-HUD, but adoption of the earlier code we talked about would also strengthen our enforcement ability. Adoption of the pre-HUD mobile home ordinance being discussed later will allow us to perform this inspection on all homes also. Currently, we inspect a good portion of these items on here, but not all. So I want to be able to inspect all those items.
I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
Back on the first page, skirting must be removed for pre-inspection.
Mike and I talked about that. If we could just, if the skirting is all there and it's beautiful and it's in shape, if we could just get a couple removed so we can put a flashlight in and look maybe one on this end and one on this end on the other side. We just need to be able to look under there and make sure that the insulation, hopefully a vapor barrier of some nature is there. Because skirting, though it looks better, isn't a requirement. Unless you're in a mobile home park that requires it, skirting isn't a requirement.
Now, what about the insulation? These are old mobile homes. We've had animals get under there. You're telling me we have to put all new insulation under these mobile homes?
No, what I'm saying is that if the insulation in the trailer itself needs to be replaced, the bottom board, that board that's under the floor, it needs to be complete and safe.
How do you find that out?
Well, if I could take you to a few trailers right now where I can rock myself up and down on the floor,
Oh, okay.
that bottom board, there's a problem
Okay.
there.
Yeah.
That's
I
more.
was questioning, I think this lady here was talking about insulation underneath the trailer.
Mhm.
And wouldn't that, or were you talking about the
Walls or,
I'm talking about the insulation under the trailer was there to begin with. I'm talking about, when I say insulation and the inspection, the walls,
Oh, okay.
and in some instances, the water heater, the separate water heater room, for lack of a better term, closet, water heater closet. No, I'm not talking about replacing all that insulation underneath.
Good.
Just as long as it is up there where it needs to be. Sometimes some of these mobile homes don't even have a vapor barrier under them.
And that's part of the problem. That vapor barrier should be there. Insulation, I would prefer it be there, but if you got skirting, at least the skirting, if you had skirting, it would do some protection. If there's no vapor barrier, that floor is just gonna keep sweating, and that bottom
But if you
board's...
have insulation all throughout the underneath, if you have insulation throughout the whole length of the mobile home, and it is keeping moisture, from getting up inside, then I don't understand why a vapor barrier
That
would
would
be
be fine.
necessary.
That would be fine. But what Jenny was talking about was those older ones where the insulation is either gone or it's about to be gone.
You just replace it then.
You
Replace
can,
the
but if
insulation.
not, then there needs to be a vapor barrier of some sort.
Well, we would replace we would make sure that there's insulation there. I mean, there's no reason not to.
So,
How do you get under there and do that?
You crawl under there.
Not me. Find somebody to do that. You'll do that for me.
Oh, yeah.
You can't get underneath a lot of these trailers.
Some of them you
Yeah.
can't, they're setting real low to the
Yeah,
ground.
absolutely. You can't get underneath some of these, but, and it would be hard for you to even inspect them, let alone make any repairs or maintenance. I guess, I don't know if we want to talk about the bigger picture. If you look at the new guidelines, you're not going to get one trailer that's pre-HUD pass inspection, most likely. The way you've written these, and I understand where you're trying to go. You're trying to keep people safe, right? I get it.
Amen.
So,
Jenny has a trailer that's passed inspection.
not this inspection. Not
Correct.
taking off skirting, not going through.
My
no,
goal-
no. So no, it didn't.
But I
pass
do want to state, my goal is not to make this unpassable. That's part of having this conversation.
I agree with you. I know you're in a tough spot. I'm not, but I would say 95% of trailers will not pass inspection with the way
The pre-HUDs.
The pre-HUDs. It's just not going to happen. So,
And the expense of doing all that.
Yeah, it's-
replacing all the insulation now we make sure our floors are solid. And some of the problem with the floors, you have your vents going through, those sweat. Whenever I got a floor that's going bad, it's by the vents where the ductwork runs through. So it's not always coming from underneath.
No.
So, but yeah, we make sure our floors are solid, but the expense of doing some of this stuff run us right out of business.
yeah. That's the bigger picture.
There's not enough rent
You're
to
gonna,
pay for it.
you're probably going to have to condemn, 50 trailers in town. I'm making up a number, I have no idea.
Sure.
But, so you're going to force those low-income renters into predicament. Woe is me, a landlord trying to, I'll lose some units, if that's not the end of the world for me. But we are creating a hardship for the community as a whole. One for the landlords, but also for the renters.
Can I add
Yeah.
this? For these trailers, for low-income people, you know what, Joe, if that trailer's not insulated halfway decent, they can't afford the dang electric bill anyway, and you know that, and the reason this is going on is because, I'll tell you what, I'm just having some issues with people being in places with kids that they shouldn't be in, and I just had it. I just had somebody give somebody a trailer over, and I'm not saying who it was, but 2 children, and went over and looked at it, and by God, they would have took that and they would have been sitting there with a trailer on somebody else's pad,
Time bomb, yeah.
and that's wrong. That's not, we're gonna continue, and I get it, because I agree with you, I sympathize with that, because when you're low income, that's where you kind of end up, but we gotta still make sure, so we're not, they gotta be taken care of.
I guess my question is, what's wrong with the current system that we have now?
Well, I think the answer is the amount of trailers that are sitting out there that don't have anybody in them, that are falling apart, that have
But those aren't really causing a problem for anyone if they're empty or abandoned.
Well, I think they're causing a problem for those who live around it.
Okay, fine, but that's another law, right? That could be just like the situation we've had up on 10th Street, right? That could be a nuisance law where not taken care of with building codes, it could be taken care of with a nuisance law. Potentially. Right? I mean, if that's what you're saying, that they're a hazard to surrounding
What
people.
nuisance, I mean, there's no sharp edges, okay? The trailer's just sitting there.
Describe the problem that you're having with the abandoned ones then. Why are they a danger? If they either have to be dangerous or they're not dangerous.
Well, first of all, if they're going to be used at some point, when are they going to be used? In the meantime, they're sitting there dilapidating. They are affecting other property value. They are affecting the folks who live next door who may have to deal with, you know, I don't know if it's skunks or cats that live under them or mice that live around them. They're a potential fire hazard, so they could be a drain on the city services if something happens to one and God forbid it jumps to another. I mean, they are problems. If they're a nuisance to me is very specific in our code. It tells you that there's a nuisance if there's vermin or vector.
We're talking about two different things here, Dave, because if they're not applying for an occupancy permit, then it wouldn't, these building codes would have no effect on them. If they're abandoned, we wouldn't even be able to use these brand new codes that you want passed, correct?
Well, if we get to the next page, there's one for abandoned mobile homes.
Okay, so
Joe, I mean, there's no playing around here. This is this organization, myself, and the city saying we've got 25 or 30 abandoned trailers sitting around. We've got, I get a call on a semi-monthly basis from someone who bought or gets rented a trailer. They move in and they have a complaint about the shape of it, the insulation of it, the window falls right out. So yeah, there needs to be something done. You tell me what to do.
I think the current occupancy permits that we have now allow you guys to go in and check, you know, the security and the safety of the places that we have now. Mm-hmm. You know, some of this also falls on the renter, right? Some of this is responsibility of them. So buyer beware, right? So that's been in place in the United States for a very long time. You know, but at the same time, it's really tough for a landlord to balance the economics of providing a home for somebody when you're charging bare minimum for rent and you have the utilities and the upkeep and everything else on top of that. So,
and my goal is not to stomp on landlords. That's part of the reason they're having this meeting.
I know, you've done a good job.
But,
you're trying to put the
but, I mean, the city's position is we have to make it safe for the citizens, you know, and provide us, you know.
Isn't that our responsibility? Isn't that why I'm a mayor?
And some renters don't have the education to know what they're getting themselves into, to know what the risks are.
I had a lady call me today. I'm not even making this up.
Oh, I know.
She was offered a trailer for $375 and wanted to know if anything. It happened to be one that we inspected, and I said, if you buy it, you're going to have $4,000 worth of work that you have to put into it. So the folks that are sitting here are obviously, I mean, you care, but not everybody does. And these folks are getting conned into buying these trailers.
Well, no, that ain't the thing. The thing is buyer beware in general. Because like you build a brand new house and I buy it and I don't like the way it's set up, that's more or less what you're telling me. That these guys are doing it. Well, there's buyer beware to begin with.
So it's okay for the city to allow that to happen.
I didn't say it was okay, but the country's letting it to happen and we're part of this country, unfortunately. And it's buyer beware anywhere you go. Buy a car,
yes,
same way.
I just want to, okay. I've had many city inspections done on my mobile home.
Yes, ma'am.
I consider it an extra insurance policy. And you check the floors, you check the outlets, electrical, you check the ceilings, you know, and the home is safe, it's secure, everything passes. My concern is now you're bringing in insulation, a vapor block.
Barrier.
And, you know, and getting under and it's like this is, and vents over the stoves.
Those are standard things.
Yeah, but that's some of those other things are just a big expense. If it's a safe home and we're complying with what you guys have been doing, now you've added the carbon monoxide detectors, that's fine. I was putting them in before.
But that's on the other occupancy also.
Yeah, yeah. So,
The things you mentioned earlier are additions.
but I guess my concern is, okay, we're going now underneath the trailers and we're, the roofs the roofs have to be sealed and painted so there's no leaking. I understand all that, but if you're starting to bring in underneath the trailers and a few other things, it's just, we're spending a lot of money now just fixing up what we have to get it to pass inspection, and now I'm gonna have to be doing more of this. The money's not there.
And the
I
money
want mine safe too, but is there some kind of a compromise here,
Well, that's what you're here for tonight. I don't want to compromise on health and safety,
No.
I'll tell you that.
I understand that, but if
So
it's,
if you think these things are too much, these folks are listening to you, I'm listening to you. However, thank you.
I'm just,
However, I want to be fair. I think this board, well, I keep saying this board and I want to be fair, but I don't think our top concern is the economic benefit of the landlord. I want to be fair. I understand you're making a business out of this. I understand you're providing somewhere for a low-income individual to live, but we also have low-income housing in other places, and hopefully maybe more of it someday. So my goal is not to put these people out on the street. The mayor, though he just left, and I have had a conversation about if we have to kick somebody out, that's a poor choice of terms. If we have to make one of these trailers uninhabitable and someone has to leave it, what can we do to help get them into some place quickly? So that's a conversation that's being had, but tonight is about this.
Okay, should the city be able to help them out to get them into low income somewhere that evidently they've
How
not
could
been
the
able to
city
get
help them
there?
out?
Well, like you said, if you kick somebody out, you're gonna help them get into low income over on Robinwood
I don't know what you mean by
wherever.
help. Can I give them phone numbers and give them a phone to use?
Well, at
and
the start.
tell them where the
because some
churches
people
are?
don't.
And not only can I do that, I already do that.
Oh, that's great. Oh, I didn't know. That's why I'm asking.
Yep. There's several churches in town that have helped some of these folks. Yeah. If you come up with more questions, or like Jenny, if you want to circle the things on this inspection that you're worried about, do that and give it to me, and I'll submit it to these guys, in case you need to take it home and look at it. It's a lot to look at. That's why I wanted to have this meeting, but I also wanted to talk about it. And I know the majority of you sitting here. I don't think you're out to gouge people, but I do think, man, since I've took this job, I've been in some mobile homes, and people should not be living in some of the ones that I've been in. Others are fine, but there's some that people shouldn't be living in. And this commission, some of the aldermen, the mayor, I would like to strengthen what we have available to us to hold those folks accountable. Do you guys have a different version of that?
No.
My whole thing is, like you said, the pre-HUDs is my big thing, making sure they're safe for electrical and whatnot.
The pre-HUDs, I mean, they are the biggest problem. There's no doubt about that. They were made to a different code. They've probably reached their shelf life for the most part. But if you're making repairs to them, then I think that should be fine.
Do you think you have a list of the pre-HUDs? Do you now have it?
I mean, I have one up here that I think are pre-HUDs, like they have the water heater closet door for the most part. There's single wides, there's quite a few in town.
So something I would suggest, and I saw this, is making a list like this, a checklist for renters to use as a guideline. If they have to come and get a permit, and make some information available to them, and let them make the decision if they want to live there.
So
Didn't we
Instead
talk
of
about
putting
that?
the onus back on the landlord to try to build these up to the right code, provide renters with some good information so that they can make a decision, because like this lady was saying here, like some people don't know what to look for. And I think if you are trying to protect residents and renters, I don't know how you would do that if they have to come in and sign off that the permit was the occupancy permit was completed prior to, I would be okay with that if the city said I have to show an occupancy permit to a prospective renter, and that they also have to sign off that they read through a guideline or whatever you want to call that, a handout or whatever you would want to call that, and say, hey, have you checked the windows? Have you checked for exhaust vents? Have you checked for, smoke alarms and carbon monoxide, and things that are outside your typical inspection? Now, those are all on your inspection currently, but some other key things. Check the floors. I know what you're talking about. I've had floors you have to replace because they get rotten after some water. Check windows, check roofs, look for stains on the ceiling, check for those type of things. I think that would be maybe a good because these pre-HUD ones are not going to be around much longer. I mean, we're opening up a big can of worms here for some of these were around in the 60s and 70s. Sure. I just tore one down, I think maybe it was even the 50s. Not too long ago. It was put in place in the 50s. And there's not much shelf life left to some of them. And I know it's a big pain in the butt for the next 5 or 10 years while these trailers run their course. But you are going to run people out of a place to live. Good or bad, they made the decision. And if we give them good information, I think that would be a good compromise to start with.
So you're saying, like, on the occupancy inspection, there'd be a spot where your renters have to come in and sign.
Maybe something along that.
Is that kind of what you're saying? Or
Where you hand them a pamphlet or something?
So we sent this out with the letter that
Right.
you all got, and it's a pamphlet basically on if you're purchasing a mobile home and some sites to go to. What you're saying is create something of this nature that talks about the maintenance of the trailer.
Or because, I noticed, like Joe said, there's a lot of kids, and I'm talking kids in their 20s and 30s having kids still. Just like what happened when we was growing up, unfortunately, that's life. But, they don't know their ass from home ground because they can't get the nose out of their damn phone or off their computer.
So you're saying
I'm just being honest, I mean,
give them a checklist.
Right. Give them that pamphlet, make sure they sign that, they received that pamphlet.
And
they
I
have
think
no
that's,
complaints to come back on any landlord.
I think that's a good idea. My only concern is that they're in there before they get it.
Yeah, and I don't.
Well, some situations you can't help though. Like a domestic disturbance or something where they got to split up.
Yeah.
People need to, roof over their head that night.
You guys are short-handed, right? We only have one building inspector working part-time. We only have you with so many hours in a day. So a lot of times we will show an advertisement and somebody needs a place to stay, and then all of a sudden we can't get an inspection for 5 days. So some of that onus comes back on the city because you guys can't make the stuff available for us to run our business. Because you put a requirement on us, and so not all of it.
I get what you're saying.
Yeah.
I get what you're saying. I guess my counterpoint to that is some of this is meant to counteract that, to get out there ahead of it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I get what you're saying.
What if you end up having someone that you've done a background check on these renters that you want to put in, they don't have any criminal history, they don't have any rent in possession, and they don't have a lot of debt to other companies and stuff like that, and that's basically what we look for whenever we try to screen our tenants. And sometimes that stuff doesn't show up until like a year or two later on case.net.
How does that?
If there's any kind of criminal activity or anything.
How does that factor into what we're talking about here tonight?
It has a lot to do with whether we're going to take the chance to rent to those people or not. They have to fill out a tenant application when they're interested in a mobile home. And the only time I give out a tenant application is when I've got a mobile home that is ready to be rented, then I will show it to somebody. But I'm not going to rent my trailers to anybody until it's the way I want it to be, for me to sleep in it. And if I don't feel good about it, I'm not renting it. That's the way it's always been with us.
Sure.
And what if you end up with a tenant that has passed a screening and everything looks wonderful, which is, yeah. So,
and then they do something to
you want to rent this to these people and you still haven't been able to get an inspection, you're going to lose those renters if they're not willing to wait.
I don't know of anyone in the city that's lost a renter because they've waited on us. I've dropped what I've done. Mike's come in on his days off. I mean, Joe alluded to 5 days, and maybe on a rare occasion that happens, but even with Mike working 3 days and the multiple things that I do, I challenge you to find anyone who's waited more than 2 or 3 days for an inspection.
You did say that you wouldn't run it out until it was ready, so part of the inspection process is being ready.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
I mean, I know, I've run.
Yeah, because I'm working on a mobile home now that I think is almost finished, just little details and everything, and I'm gonna have it inspected. And I'm not gonna rent it until I know it's the way it needs to be. I mean, I've been with the city doing inspections years ago, and Sandy Kohler was on the board back then, and she knew back then, she even told me that she didn't need to worry about me because she knew that the mobile homes would be safe and they would be fine. And so she never really pushed me getting inspections.
Okay.
So,
But even, it's easy for people to miss things that the inspector.
But, I mean, that was a few years back, so they have a few more years of age on them, and, I mean, Sandy's a great person, but I'm not Sandy.
We still try to make sure that those mobile homes are livable, and we're not going to put anybody in those mobile homes until they are. That's just the way Junior and I have always done it.
And I see that because you have several that are sitting there waiting for repairs.
Once we have a mobile home rented, we move on to the next one and try to build up our cash flow to be able to work on the next mobile home, to be able to get it ready. So if we have mobile homes that are in the court that are empty, it's because we actually inherited the mobile homes from my husband's father. And Dad didn't want to fix them up. Mom did. Mom and I did, but Dad didn't want to. But there are mobile homes that are there that Johanna and I actually worked on without Dad knowing about it and tried to get them up to snuff. And there's going to be some that, you know, what probably end up, we'll have to scrap them out. But it takes money to scrap them out, too.
It does.
We're in
I've
the
looked
process
for
right now getting several of them moved out. We're waiting on the mover. We're in the process of getting several of those trailers moved out. There's a couple of them that Frank Smith had, waiting for the mover to get lined out, so probably any day, so.
Yeah, just let me know on those. I did try to find, for lack of a better term, reasonable means to present tonight to hopefully the folks who showed up about scrapping or moving, and there is no reasonable. There are places you can donate them to, but that's a process also. If you have some that are abandoned and aren't worth fixing up, still have one call out to, and if I get that and anyone here is interested, I can give you the information of someone who would scrap a mobile home. I don't know what the cost is involved, but the ones that I did find out, I mean, it was $4 or $5 a square foot, or you had to do it yourself. So, and that's a considerable amount of work, and I get that, but in the meantime, they just continue to sell.
I've done 3 of them. You don't make any money off. You lose money, you know, moving a mobile home. Whether you're moving it or scrapping it or tearing it out, you know, you lose money. There's no.
Yep, you do. Again, I would submit to you that if you have questions, ask them, but if you have any specific questions on this, give me a holler. I'll probably get back together with these folks. I mean, not Mr. Dalton, but you're free to come. He's not on this. He's not on this commission. These folks and then the other ones that I mentioned in about a month. So that's 4 weeks if you have any questions. I do want to move on to the next document. It's the pre-HUD mobile home ordinance. So get to it here. And it says, in bold, it says section 215.xxx pre-HUD mobile homes. Okay. This potential ordinance would help the city better control some of the issues that currently exist with pre-HUD mobile homes, including limiting their presence in the city, their maintenance and safety, and the disposition of any that are abandoned. This would help both citizen safety and nuisance abatement in the long run. Again, whether they're a nuisance now could probably be argued. Joe brought that up. There's a specific definition of nuisance. But I do want to go over some pieces of this and then let you ask any questions that you have. I'm going to read that first part. Effective as of the date of the adoption of this ordinance, pre-HUD mobile homes shall not be permitted to enter the city of St. Genevieve or to be installed and placed for habitable living units, storage, or any other purposes within the city limits of St. Genevieve, except, I put this first exception in there because you never know what situation might occur, as approved by the majority of the Board of Aldermen or unless the mobile home meets the standards set forth in Exhibit A attached here too, and we'll go over that next. Any pre-HUD mobile home which is currently installed and occupied as a living unit shall be permitted to remain in its present location, but may not be relocated to or installed upon any other parcel or have a change of occupant, owner, or use unless the mobile home meets the standards set forth in Exhibit A or has met them in the past 12 months. I was going to stop there and then I'll go on to the next. So basically that doesn't push anybody out of a trailer as it sits right now. But if you want to change occupants, use, or ownership, then we want to inspect it. And that's pretty standard. Exhibit A, I'll go over in a minute, basically is this that we just went over, the occupancy inspection, plus a few more things that the owner would be responsible for. And it's basically an electric inspection, a gas inspection if there's gas, and the fact that that little water heater closet, which tends to be a problem on those older units, would become part of the inspection. I'll go over it in a minute, but that's the gist of it. So that little ordinance piece right there basically says no more pre-HUDs come into the city unless one of these two things happen. The ones that are here are fine, but if you want to change occupants, owners, or use, then we want to get inside them.
What about if you replace one that's already there?
You wouldn't be able to bring any more into the
You
city.
can't replace it?
You could replace it with a new unit,
That's what I mean.
But not a pre-HUD. Pre-HUD, what's roughly?
pre-1976.
About 1976. You
Oh,
couldn't
no.
bring in an older one.
But it depends on where you live too. If it's not in a mobile home park, then you're currently non-conforming, and you would need to apply for a special use
See,
permit.
mine's over here by KC Hall.
Are you Mr.
Boom.
Bowman? Okay,
Yeah.
we've talked. Now I'm
Yeah.
putting a face with the name.
Right.
That's non-conforming. You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It's either commercial or residential. It's probably residential. That's a residential zone where mobile homes aren't typically allowed. It was there before we created zoning, so it's fine. But if you take it out and you want to put another one in, you have to get a special use permit, and it's going to have to be, if this goes into place, newer.
Like a 1980 or newer?
Newer than 1976. And you're still going to have to get permission to do it.
Right.
Moving on down. I'm sorry.
I have one question about
Yes.
this. So currently on rental homes now, if you're not hooked to city water, it's on the landlord's onus or responsibility to have occupancy permits made, because there is nothing that triggers occupancy change other than the change of a water bill.
Well, we changed that. We worked out a understanding with citizens. So now, anytime there's a registered rental unit, which you're required to have them registered, and electricity changes names at that address, we get a notification.
When was this done?
Four or 5 months ago. We get nothing besides the fact that this address changed electricity.
Was that the citizens provide that free of charge, or that they charge you for doing that?
No.
No charge?
Citizens Electric is providing you with that information.
As does Ameren in Jefferson County.
So that goes back to my question. So
So that's how we know that people are changing. That's what's my answer to your question.
if I'm a landlord, I want to pay the electric bill for them, I can charge them $150 a month for electric. So I could still get around that. But probably not very realistic. But my question is the current, I have permits, I have occupancy permits done on all mine, so I don't know, but can a residential home, is it required to be listed as a rental unit and forced to do occupancy permits?
Any rental unit is required to be registered every year.
That's by city ordinance, is that?
Yes,
okay,
sir.
I couldn't remember, I just wanted to make sure.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Other questions on that piece of it?
I've heard you refer to Jefferson County and Ameren, of course, but you know, I worked up there a lot of my life, and Jefferson County is totally different with everything compared to St. John County.
Okay.
And I know it's coming this way, don't get me wrong, I'm not stupid, it's coming this way, but we're nothing like any other city. Just for the simple fact, we gotta drive 30 miles one way to get to a Wally World. Well, I'm serious, that's a 60-mile round trip.
Any other questions? The next one reads, any abandoned pre-HUD mobile home must be removed from the city of St. Genevieve or otherwise disposed of in a legal manner within 180 days of the date the mobile home is deemed abandoned. Notice shall be made and processed in the same manner as provided for dangerous buildings. All that is telling me, or you, is how you're notified. This is in there because we have, I would say, 20 to 30 mobile homes sitting around the park or sitting around the city with no one in them, and they've been that way for quite a while. And over time, they become dilapidated. They become a better chance for vermin and vector to live inside them. They become a better chance of squatters to get inside them and create more problem for police and fire. This is a section that I anticipated there'd be some feedback on, so.
I clean up your grammar just so you can't use the word in the definition to describe the word. So you can't say any abandoned pre-HUD home to describe an abandoned pre-HUD home. So you have to get rid of that first abandoned.
Well, the abandoned pre-HUD mobile home is defined later in the ordinance.
You have to define what abandoned means before you can use.
Well, it would be in the ordinance.
Yes, but it's not abandoned yet until, so it's not abandoned until it's been abandoned for 180 days. So it's saying, I just clean up your language there if you want. Probably the way I read it, I would say that a lawyer might have some fun with that.
Well, once it's deemed abandoned, you would get 180 days.
Yes.
And then if you go to the back, it says, an abandoned mobile home is one which has remained on the same property, supported by its wheels and tongue, with minimal effort to block or place the mobile home on a pad for a period of 180 days.
So
I think I'm missing what you're saying.
yeah. The other question is then, so it has to be abandoned for 180 days, and then you have another 180 days to move it?
Yes. I mean, I don't mean to be rude, is the eye roll because you think that's poor, or because you think I'm giving too much time?
I think it's up to the discretion of an individual, and I just don't like one individual making a decision about how someone should live their life and about their rights and their liberties. So
Well, I don't think I'm making a decision on anybody's liberties.
You are. I mean, when you were putting the definition of when it's abandoned, right? So if somebody moves out, is that the day that it's abandoned? Because just
It would have to be identified as no one living there at one point, and I'm not going to do that. I don't have this position for the eternity, so I can't speak for everyone.
I know.
But just because you or Jenny or the Geggs or Mr. Beckerman or Mr. Bowman have someone move out, I'm not, I mean, if you think I'm driving around looking for things to take care of, you're incorrect. But if I keep driving by and there's no one there for a couple months, I guess it is kind of discretionary, but a couple months, then I'm going to start the clock. I'm not going to start the clock on you just because you're in between the renters. Again, I'm not going to have this position forever. So
I think Joe's point is well taken.
I just have some, it's pretty arbitrary, and I would have some real problems with that part. I understand.
So you'd like a set date?
No, more clarity as far as what abandoned means, because if I want to keep a place for a year, because for whatever reason, if I want, and then, or a year and a half, if I want to keep a place empty for a year and a half, I don't know. It's pretty arbitrary for the city to come in and use a set amount of time and say it's abandoned.
So do you have a suggestion?
It's a tough.
What about not being able to have the funds to be able to work on the mobile home until you have enough time?
What about some kind of
Creating
application?
funds from your other rentals that you have rented, because
But my question then
We
becomes,
rent
what
pads,
is sufficient
we rent
time to
pads
do some
and
repairs?
lots.
Is a year sufficient time to do
you're-
repairs?
Not necessarily.
Depending on the situation, in my situation, I make less than $1,000 a month.
So why not sell the
And
mobile
no,
home?
I just bought. What are you talking about to sell? I'm trying to keep my payment down, so I bought paid it off, and now I'm redoing it.
Okay.
Just stuck at probably a $3,000.
You're
AC
living in it and redoing it?
Oh, I've been living in it the whole time.
So that's not a problem here.
Right. I mean, it's been livable, otherwise I wouldn't have bought it.
But the exact same thing could be said. If he's living outside of town with his sister.
Yeah,
and he's
if that's
working
the
on it
case.
For a year and a half, you know, so it doesn't matter whether he's living there or not.
So should we have to see some movement? Right?
I don't.
Well, as long as my grass is
I don't
cut,
like
I
the
would
whole
think would be
concept.
all right, wouldn't it?
Well,
Yes, sir.
earlier, you were talking about nuisance ordinance. Don't you go around and look at people's property, if there's a nuisance, you cite them? So if we start citing abandoned places that you presume are abandoned as a nuisance, wouldn't that kind of give you a date to say, okay, this is,
It could, and I don't just, if you've dealt with me, I don't just cite you. I send a courtesy letter.
I understand, but
So, yeah, could I send a
My point
courtesy?
is-
If I send a courtesy letter and one of you responds, hey, I'm working on it, I need 6 months, as long as it's not falling apart, something of that nature, yes, I could work that into this.
Yeah, put it in put that in there. So there's a notice, there's a procedure for notice.
Right.
And then the
Period for
clock starts.
response, and some sense of what the response should be, a timeline for bringing it up to code.
Do we have?
but no, I suggested that nuisance ordinance, but let's say, you thought something was abandoned and someone wasn't cutting their grass. So you came and you cited them for that, but then they went out and cut their grass then it would no longer be a nuisance. So then the clock would start again, in my definition, what I just got done saying.
So if we come out and we see that a mobile home, I'm looking at it, the grass isn't cut, maybe it gets cut, but still nobody's there. I get a hold of, here again, you have problems of getting hold of the owner, because it could be sitting on the Geggs property, but they don't own it. So then I have to call them and find out who owns it. They might not know who owns it. But anyway, if I could get a hold of that information, you're saying send a letter and start the clock. And
Send
then
the letter.
if I do some work, does that restart the clock? Is that what you're asking?
Right.
Who do you
I think
send
if
the
you
letter
submit
to?
a plan,
Who do you
that's
send the letter
okay.
to if we don't own the mobile home? If
Right.
we're just renting the lot in the past?
I said I would get in touch with, I use you as an example because you have the largest lots in town. You would have to tell me who owns the trailer or accept
The
responsibility,
majority
I
of the
guess.
time we do, but then again, we don't, because they have
So you don't
switched
know the
hands
owners
so
of all the
fast.
trailers in your
They have
lot?
switched hands with owners so fast, we didn't even know about it.
Is there anything in your lease that obligates them to keep it up to the standard?
Yeah,
Oh, definitely, yes, sir.
yeah.
You should have something else in there.
It does. Been living there for a long time.
I think we
Go
already
through a lot of
requires the
expense,
listed as owners of
mowing and,
trailers.
Keeping up,
Didn't we say that earlier?
abandoning some of these abandoned trailers that don't even belong to us.
They own it.
So if a person buys a trailer, say in your park, whatever, somebody buys a trailer, then they change hands, somebody's gotta be paying the rent,
Yeah.
right?
Oh, yeah.
So you would know who.
Oh, yeah,
We
she
have
knows,
to
she knows every
approve,
one
we
of
have
them,
to
yeah.
approve, there's, in our lease,
Oh, no,
it
right,
states that we
right.
have to, they cannot sell a mobile home to someone else unless they come to us
They're not
first and
supposed
let
to,
us know that that's what their intentions
Well, they're
are.
supposed to, but that happens.
But they don't do that.
Oh, no, I
They don't do that. Sometimes we don't find out until after they've sold it. And all of a sudden,
Right.
this stranger comes into our office and says, oh, I bought this mobile home. Well, now, what am I supposed to do? And what if they don't meet our background criteria?
Right.
We're stuck with a bum or a drug.
Several of them.
And we've been trying to get drugs out of the trailer court.
I
We're
understand.
working with the sheriff's department and the police department. And so far, nobody's gotten killed.
Bless you, bless you.
I think the drug
Those are our main
problem is a lot
problems right
bigger
now.
problem than, I think the drug problem in this town is a lot bigger than worry about maybe abandoned mobile home here or there, I mean.
Well, I think there is a drug problem, but that's not my purview. That's the police. This is what I do.
Some of these mobile homes that people have bought from sub-landlords are the problem because they're the ones selling the drugs. And
So-
we're back and forth with the police,
I will definitely,
sheriff's department,
okay.
and
What-
they're looking, detectives, everything, they're
Okay.
looking. And we have to sit and wait. And then we're gonna be responsible, for all these people with these mobile homes.
It has
We
nothing to do with what I'm
End up
talking
being
about as far as
abandoned.
responsibility when it comes to someone having drugs and living in one of your mobile homes. That's a police matter, nothing to do with this. But I understand your concern.
But it's gonna end up being an abandoned mobile home if they just take off.
Or get thrown back in jail
Right.
for who knows how long.
I think what they're getting at, Dave, is, so once that happens, they get thrown in jail, whatever, they're stuck with an abandoned mobile home. Now, how are you gonna contact whoever happens to own it?
I
Because,
would-
you know, they don't own it.
Ms. Getz, you and I have had this conversation. There's a process with the state for you to take over an abandoned mobile home.
Maybe I don't want an abandoned mobile home.
I don't blame you.
Maybe I don't want to get charged extra taxes,
So what should
On a
happen to
mobile
that home then?
and then I've got to go and find the money to try to pull that mobile home out of our trailer court?
Can't
We
disagree with
can't
any of
afford
that. In the meantime, it sits there.
Well, then it's got to go in front of a judge, and a judge is going to have to say what's going to happen to that mobile home. I don't want it.
So what should happen to it?
Let the judge tell them where to go. Take it.
You know, they haul off abandoned vehicles and they haul off abandoned property, but I don't think I've ever seen the state pull up and pull off
No.
an abandoned mobile home. But that's technically what should be done. You know, you talk, I mean, if the trailer park owners, the pad owners don't want the property, I'm sure there's a precedence. I'm sure this is not the first time this has happened in the state of Missouri, but it's curious. It's a very small percentage, I think, of one-off, but it is interesting to see if the landowners, the pad owners don't want the trailer after they have legal right to basically get a title to it. That's,
In fact, we have one in litigation right now, it's next month, we have a court date. We're anxious to see what the judge is gonna do there, so I hope he makes somebody pull it out of there, but I doubt it. But so here we're gonna
Well,
be
then you
stuck
have to
with something.
enforce it.
Right.
If he says pull it out and it doesn't get pulled out,
We're not paying for it.
right.
It's not our mobile home.
So hopefully the judge makes it.
Last month, we had the Public Service Commission on the phone with us, and they basically alluded to the fact, this is Missouri State Public Service Commission, who has a mobile home division, that they don't do this. They basically deal with brand-new trailers. They'll check them and inspect the anchoring and that they're put in place properly, but they don't deal with any of these older mobile homes anymore, which is kind of sad, but leads me to why I'm here tonight. So do you think, besides tightening up the definition, is that not fair? That the city would like these abandoned mobile homes to,
if you send me a letter saying that I deem this property abandoned, and within my time frame, I rebuttal and say, no, it's not, I'm working on it.
I would ask for a more specific plan.
I bring you a receipt from Lowe's that I spent, $50 at Lowe's.
I keep an eye on it and make sure you're mowing grass and things aren't falling off of it.
With HUD, anytime that we're going to have a unit vacant, we have to notify them that it's going to be vacant for longer than a month, and then we have to tell them what's going to be done to the unit, and then we have to give them a time frame of when we're going to have it finished. If we don't get it finished within that time frame, then we reapply to have approval to have it vacant for X amount of more time for this, and this work. That's, so that way,
That's a very specific plan.
yes, yeah, and it's a way to
That's a
say,
bad idea.
I still want to work on this unit, this is what I'm going to do with it, this is why I need this time off, and then it's either approved or denied.
Let me ask you something, this is a one-off for sure. Let's say I found someone who would, if any of you were interested, would want to scrap 10 trailers, mobile homes. I apologize. When I was a kid, I lived in a trailer.
I did too.
Mobile homes. Would any of you be interested in that?
Yes,
Okay.
as long as it doesn't cost us anything.
I can't say
We'll have to
that.
take it off our
But I'm
hands.
certain if there was quantity involved, it might cost less. I'll get you the information if I find it. I don't know that I will.
But as Joe said, nobody's going to do it for the value of the scrap.
No, but they might do it for less than, if you got a 200 square foot trailer or mobile home, and at $5 a square foot, that's $1,000, and I don't,
None of them
I don't want to hand somebody $1,000 to take my trailer
None
away.
of them are 200 square foot.
What are they?
12 by 60, 14 by 80. You know what I mean? You got, depending on what size you're talking about.
So you're talking about 1,000 square foot,
Yeah.
give or take. Okay, so that's even more. Okay. Again, submit to me any comments you have. The last paragraph there, any pre-HUD mobile home which is destroyed, this is pretty consistent with if a house burns. So it
I'm going
just
to ask
says,
one more question.
Yeah.
To go back to that last paragraph before we move on, do we have a procedure or ordinance that sets up abandoned homes as permanent residence or as opposed to a mobile home? We have something similar that would state that a house is abandoned as opposed to this ordinance now will say when a mobile home is abandoned?
not that I'm
We
aware
have
of.
similar ordinance for, okay.
Do you know of anything?
No, we do not.
Yeah.
So it's kind of odd that we're treating one type of dwelling differently than another type of dwelling.
Yeah, I know.
Odd, maybe, but-
I mean,
if-
There's a significant amount of
especially on Main Street.
unoccupied mobile homes throughout
You
the
know, if you
state.
had a modular home, you had a home and it was attached to a permanent foundation,
Mhm.
even though it originally got there on wheels, would you consider that a permanent structure versus a mobile home?
You mean a modular home?
Well,
Is that what you're saying?
Just teach them on.
modular homes suggested came out and had these modules put together, but just a double wide on a permanent foundation.
Which there are some of those.
Right.
That's different to me than a home that's sitting on
A chassis.
a chassis, and while the wheels may be removed, the axle's still exposed, and it can be
Hooked up and
Like
pulled.
Jeanette Wood, I think, has one there on Gabourey, next to her permanent house.
Okay.
I think that's what, an
Yeah,
example.
so I think
of
there
what-
should be a distinction
Yeah.
there.
Distinction on the definition of what we're talking about as far as mobile home.
Definition.
And nothing to be in there, nobody been there for years.
This semantic problem
Well,
has
they
been around
actually
forever.
have, well, it's been a while, but.
Mobile
Been a
home,
long time.
manufactured home,
I'm
modular
kinda happy it's
home.
empty.
What I'm talking about
Yeah.
with these ordinances is on a chassis. It's on a chassis, it's movable,
Right.
it's a home, but you have to connect it to
So
water,
in
sewer.
this situation, Jeanette Woods, it's on a chassis, but it has cinder block foundation
Mm-hmm.
around the house for the skirting. It's permanently attached. She might have even applied, you can apply for a title, a deed.
You can, yeah.
You can even apply for a deed. if
But I
that's
think
a
you have to
deed.
remove the gooseneck and all that other jazz.
You do.
But I see what you're saying.
But hers, that's already been removed. So just, you might want to look at that,
Okay.
a little bit of that too.
Yeah, to avoid confusion. And then, and Joe's raised earlier, and I think this is something for consideration. The motivation here is public health and safety,
Amen.
not aesthetics. So I think we need to look at language that addresses the public health and safety problem we're trying to solve. So if you have a mobile home, it's secured, you know, the windows are boarded up, so it's not an attractive nuisance to the kids. It's properly skirted, so it's not breeding habitat for rodents, reptiles, or vermin, and you're maintaining your yard. Is there a nuisance?
As far as the abandoned ones.
Yeah, I mean, is that an abandoned home, or is that, what is the public health and safety question if those conditions are present?
It'd be hard pressed to prove that that's a nuisance.
Yeah.
And that's my point with some of these as they exist right now.
You told me that if we kept the mobile homes that we don't have people living in right now, and they need work, and when we can get to them and have the money to work on them, you told me as long as the windows and doors and everything were fine, and the exterior was fine, and we kept the grass mowed, and their skirting and everything was on, that you had no problem with that.
I think that's part of what I'm saying here, is if you're working
I
on
can't
them,
handle that word abandoned, because these mobile homes that we have
But you
are
have
not
some-
Not abandoning them.
you have some in your
Yeah,
park that are
yeah.
abandoned. They may not belong to you, but they're there. They belonged to a previous owner.
Yeah, in fact, there was even one that brought your attention. I don't know if you ever found that owner or not. Did you? Find it?
I reached out and reached out and reached out. That last name began with an S.
Yep.
Yeah, I never got a response.
Problem with the public nuisance response, and I think that's what you're asking here, is the burden then falls on the property owner to mitigate the nuisance.
Yes, if, for lack of a person who owns the trailer, it falls to the property owner.
Right.
And I know that puts you in a tough bind.
Where are we supposed to get the money?
I can't answer that, I'm sorry.
Because the minimum, I got several bids on moving some of those trailers. The minimum bid I get from a legal mover was $800 a unit. That's,
And that's,
Absolutely.
and not a very long distance away from where the
Yeah.
mobile home is.
As long as it's well off your property, who cares where it is at?
Well, he wouldn't take it, no, he wouldn't take it for that, he'd just move it. He would just move it a
He
few
just
miles.
moved
That's
it.
just a
Yeah, a
hook
mile
up.
or two, yeah, they
Move
bought
it a
it.
few
So-
miles,
Yeah.
in the county,
Let me just suppose, I know you're, $800 is a lot, but you move that off, you put a new one, or a newer one there, then you
Oh,
have
yeah.
Why
rent.
would we?
Yeah, that'd
Why
be
would
great.
we?
Yeah.
To
We're
get-
paying $800
I'm
to
assuming
move.
you're in business to make money, so
Oh, yeah.
to get rent.
We only get pad and lot rent. That's all, that's
So
basically
you
all
rent-
we get. It's $165 a month, and it's a deposit as well.
So are
That's the
you,
majority of our
Check.
rentals.
are you asking new folks to put their mobile homes in the mobile home park?
People have called and wanted to know if a pad was available. Sure, we have pads, and we tell them what our restrictions are. And it can't be an old mobile home. It has to be at least, what? 90s, at least 90s, or try to get in the year 2000 at least.
Okay.
You know, and then we will go and look at the mobile home, or they send us a picture of it. And then if it's up to what we want in the mobile home court, then we'll approve it. But we have to see it.
So
You can send it, you can send us a bunch of them, we'll take them.
Yeah,
Yeah.
send us some.
Yeah.
if I get anyone asking, I'll send them your way. I have no problem with that, but
Yeah.
I'm just playing devil's advocate. If you were to get rid of some of the ones, like we've talked about the brown one that has sat
That
there for a
one's
while,
going.
get
We're
rid
going
of
to
some
get
of
rid of
those.
it.
Maybe it would lure anyone who wants to get a mobile home to come put newer, not new. That would be great too.
Newer. Yeah, nobody who can afford a new one. Some of them are $75,000.
Not the ones I'd be interested in. So, before I move to the last document, and I appreciate everyone being here tonight, on this document that we're looking at, the first part talks about not bringing any more pre-HUD trailers in and holding the ones that are here accountable. Beyond the fact that, I get that there's consideration for why, but I think I've answered those questions. Is there anything wrong that you see with that?
I wouldn't want to bring an old mobile home back in.
Right.
What
And
for?
then tightening it, well, that's later on down. The next one is the abandoned ones. So tighten up the definition and make sure, like Martin pointed out, if you board the windows, if you have skirting so there aren't critters living underneath it, and you keep the lawn mowed, and that doesn't qualify as abandoned, and you give me a plan, or whoever's in this position, a plan, that here's what we're doing over the course of the next whatever, is there any problem with that?
It's going to have a lot to do with time frame, because we don't make that kind of money to be able to work on these mobile homes.
But I'm
We don't-
saying like the ones that you're talking about where Mr. Gegg said, so-and-so owns this and needs to get rid of it or inherited it. That one, it needs to go. So if I send a letter to the person who owns it and they don't do it, it would fall to you. So besides a financial concern, which I can understand, do you have a problem with that stipulation? Besides saying, how do I afford that? I get that. We go in, we do occupancy inspections, and we say, you got to put a handrail up. And some folks, handrail's not super expensive, but some folks say, I can't afford that. I get it, but that's not what we consider when we go do an inspection. We consider health, safety, security, things like that. You still think that that shouldn't exist? And it doesn't necessarily need to be the Geggs that respond. Anybody can respond. Is that fair? Is that unfair? Any abandoned mobile home, once identified according to a tighter definition, would need to be gone in 180 days. And I would try to get in touch with the owner, but after the owner, we have ordinances, same with houses. If the tenant/owner doesn't take care of it, it falls to the property owner.
So,
Yeah, but they're not the property owner. They just own the pad.
yeah.
They own the real estate.
That's not what the ordinance says. The ordinance talks about, when we're talking about occupancy and landlords, the landlord has to pay the damn water bill for some unknown reason when a tenant moves out.
Gotcha. I know
So,
Wait a minute, Joe, you were on the board when that first came up, and you were in favor.
no, I wasn't. I was in putting higher deposits.
We're gonna get off on a tangent here, I feel it.
Yeah, it was for higher deposits so that the city didn't get screwed out of some.
Thing is, get rid of the old ones,
Funds.
and even if it costs a little bit, if I had a trailer park, you get rid of the old, dilapidated one, even if it falls on me, get rid of it, it makes room to bring nicer, newer ones in, which wants to bring other people into the
I
park.
can't disagree with that. What Mr.
Yeah.
Buckeye is pointing out, that is if we could get rid of these, you would have hopefully an opportunity to bring in others that are nicer.
We have pads available now.
And then the third one talks about, if a trailer burns and it's beyond 50%, it needs to be destroyed.
Oh, definitely.
Okay. That's the same with a home.
That's a given. I tell you.
Last document, again, thank you, is Exhibit A. It says at the top, standards necessary to exempt a pre-HUD mobile home from the provisions of the City of St. Genevieve Municipal Code, the one we just read. So basically, in order to, any that are there would be fine, but if you want to change occupant, use, or owner, or for some reason want to bring a new one in, you would either have to get permission of the Board of Aldermen, or it would have to pass this Exhibit A. Exhibit A alludes to this inspection, and the walls, ceilings, and doors of each compartment containing a gas-fired furnace or water heater are lined with half-inch or greater gypsum board, unless the door opens to the exterior of the home, in which case the door may be of metal construction and must be able to be latched and completely closed. In other words, that water heater closet needs to be tight. Each room designated expressly for sleeping purposes shall have an exterior door on at least one outside egress window or other approved exit device with a minimum clear dimension of 22 inches on any side and a minimum clear opening of 5 square feet. The bottom of the window shall not be more than 36 inches above the floor. In other words, it needs to be safe to get out if there's a fire. Within 30 days of the city inspection, so remember we would be doing this and checking for these two things. Within 30 days, an owner to provide signed verification of the following from an electrician: that the electrical service must be properly sized for the home. In other words, a home requiring 100 amp service can't be connected to a 50 amp panel service. And all electrical systems tested for continuity. Now, I've talked with Chip Marzucco. He read this specific description, and he could perform this, I believe, for approximately $100 to $150. So he would go through and make sure that there aren't, copper wires connected to aluminum wires, and so on and so forth. And then the last one down there would involve HVAC. Gas piping. If it wasn't gas, it wouldn't have to be submitted. But if so, I've talked to Shoes. They could come out and perform this for approximately $75 to $100. So this is about a $200, $250 commitment. And then you'd have to have the other inspection done, which is $25.
And this is if we want to move a HUD house into the place.
This would be if you want to move one, or you have one, someone moves out, and you want to keep renting it. Pre-HUD.
So we have to pay.
This is only pre-HUD.
Pre-HUD, everything's pre-1976.
This part would be for any mobile
Right,
home,
that's
remember
just
that?
the general, yeah.
These would be extra if it was pre-HUD.
So
Basically pre-HUD, I'm sorry, Jenny, go ahead.
anytime we have an occupancy change, unless we've had an inspection within a year,
Correct.
okay, we have to pay $25 city inspection, $150 to Marzucco to do electrical things,
You wouldn't have to pay for Marzucco, but yes.
or $250 to HVAC, the gas. Now, when we have the gas turned off, usually when a tenant moves out, the gas is off until a new tenant moves in, or unless we want to put the heat on, then we put it in our name. Now, anytime we have the gas turned on, the gas company comes in, they inspect the stove, the furnace, the water heater, all that. Would that include?
I would accept that, absolutely.
Okay. So we wouldn't have to pay another
But I would need that
person.
document, yeah.
Okay. I just was, because I thought, oh no, we're getting more and more.
That
money
tells
for
me that the
inspection.
gas piping is safe.
Okay.
again, it's usually had some language or equivalent inspection. The ordinance.
Well, it just says the gas piping shall be tested. I mean, it
Oh, it doesn't say, okay, so if
It
the
says,
gas company did it, the gas company.
within 30 days of city inspection, owner to provide signed verification of the following from a licensed HVAC, or I could change HVAC technician. I could just put licensed technician, and I'm certain the people doing this for Spire are licensed to do it.
Well, there is no licensing, it's just same in the county for trades. So,
What do you mean, there's no licensing?
you can be an electrician without a license.
Oh, yeah.
You can be a plumber without a
Yeah,
license.
that's true.
Just say it qualifies individual.
I can change that.
Or certified.
No,
Of course, then I think we're getting into who's qualified.
Pardon me?
Exactly.
Well, you're gonna have a description, we'll come up with something.
Yeah,
But-
knowledgeable professional.
Jenny's question, I mean, I would certainly take something from Spire or whoever your gas company is. I don't know if Spire has a
Otherwise, took over Missouri.
monopoly on the area or not,
Yeah.
but,
It wouldn't have to be Marzuko either, it would be,
No.
because we use Mike McDonald a
yeah,
lot for
or
our.
Bruce Terry or.
What if it's propane? Do they,
It's the same.
they do the same thing?
Sulfur.
Yeah, so then it's gas.
Any issues with that piece of it?
No, not anymore.
Mr. and Mrs. Gegg?
No.
Mr. Beckerman? Joe? I guess I could
This is
say
a-
Mr. Steiger.
This is a one-time inspection by
It'd
the,
be good for a year.
Now, if your tenant's
It's-
been there for 2 or 3 years, do you still have to get a yearly
No.
inspection?
No.
Okay, it's just when its occupancy changes, just like the
Just like a rental
inspection.
apartment or whatever.
Okay.
so you're gonna have them come out and do another electrical inspection on change of tenancy after a year?
That's what we do with an occupancy inspection.
Yeah, they have the same thing for rental property, Joe. Anytime, if.
Yeah, but
Say I had
do
a-
a separate electrical inspection. You're gonna have,
Do you think one should be good for,
someone's gonna go back and put in a full 50 amp service into a, you know,
granted, my fear is the messing with the wiring, but
Why would you have anybody do that if it wasn't a licensed
You'd be
electrician?
surprised.
I'm not saying, you would have somebody do it.
it's
I'm saying somebody
irregular.
might.
You're trying to
I've
change it out.
actually had tenants go in
I've
and
had tenants.
change
I
wiring.
would find it
Add,
almost
add
impossible.
wiring.
Yeah.
Yeah, I need an outlet over
We wanted to
here.
do this and that, I'm like,
Yeah.
Could
what you do?
check that amount of
None of the
work
fan doesn't work.
for $150.
I mean, I gave this description to
I
Chip.
know, but can you imagine an electrician, I mean, what you're saying is that take out outlets to see if there's aluminum wire?
They would take outlet covers off and look in there in the box, yeah.
Throughout the whole trailer?
It's on the pre-line.
It's pretty
Or
hard.
save
Or
it.
pre-light.
We can disagree about whether it can be completed or not. What I'm saying is, do you think that's fair, or you think that once it's done, it should be good for 5 years or forever?
Yeah. But these are major updates. I don't think people are gonna go back in and.
These are safety concerns.
Yeah, and I think they are. But I don't-
Are we still talking pre-HUD?
Yeah,
And how many, do you have any of those?
yeah. One, yeah. It's for sale.
Real quick.
Mine
Sonny
is-
will buy it.
Mine is 2.
Buildings from 1840.
I think it would be a permanent on that mobile home, that that inspection had been done, and it would be good for the life, for the remaining life of that home.
Another remaining life.
What if as long as you haven't made any major changes? It would be
I
good
would,
for.
I would think if you sold the mobile home, that it would be on the new owner.
I have to
Yeah,
check
absolutely,
again.
definitely.
But not change on occupancy. Change on ownership, absolutely, I can see that, but not change of occupancy. A year later, they're not gonna have gone in, it's like, I mean, maybe changing a GFI or a light switch outlet or something.
But that's on this.
Yeah, exactly, good point. It is, it's already there. So having Marzuko's or an electrician come back out and do a whole nother inspection,
So you do this once, it's good unless you sell it.
yeah,
And I'd say unless
then
you
you still
sell
need
it
to-
more than a year later.
yeah,
Yeah,
yes.
I haven't seen all your heads
that
nod
is on the
all
new
night,
owner.
so I
That
like
is on the
that.
new owner.
Right.
Okay, I'm gonna write some notes down, pardon me.
I mean, if we have to do it once, why would we change it?
Well, it's not,
Well, and my concern's not always that, it's the person you have in there who's doing it
Right.
without your knowledge.
Oh, well, believe me, I'll be knocking on that door.
well, that's what I'm saying, I've actually had tenants go in and want to change this, that, don't say
No.
anything to you, and they will change, they'll change it, and you have to go back and try to fix it.
Yeah, that's why you want to do an inspection.
Right, and that's exactly what you're talking about.
I mean, our own inspection on our
Sure.
renter.
Right, but if, unless you know, really good with electric, I'm not great, like GFI switches, and say you have one running several outlets, whatever, you know. I've had to take one out before, because I didn't have it right, so, but, you know, it was one of the things where the tenant wanted something else in there, they put
Well,
it
if you
in.
if you have a decent renter and they know that, oh, that has to be up to snuff before they can even move into that mobile
No,
home.
it's once they get in,
Oh, once they get in,
once
but
they get in, they
they mess
change it.
with it, it's on them. They're
Well,
gonna
yeah,
pay for
but
it.
they're already gone, and
Also-
you do your renovations, and then, you know, you think you're all ready for a new one to come in, they do their inspection, or they don't, and then somebody else comes in and catches on fire, boom.
Do all
You
of
know.
you don't have to answer, do all of you require a security deposit
Absolutely.
up to 1 month's rent?
Yeah.
Yep.
Do all of you think it would be beneficial for you to have a landlord's organization of some type, where you talk to each other?
I think we tried that one before and it didn't work.
We have a group that some landlords are part of that we kind of share some information.
Okay.
I suggested that about 2 or 3 years ago to have the city sponsor a landlord informational workshop meeting. You know, because there's a lot more issues than just building ordinances that we go through, and so I never pushed it hard enough to get, you know, evictions, screenings, you know, if the city really wanted to be proactive for the landlords, they could give some information out and host a workshop for landlords to make them better landlords, and teach them how to be, you know, proactive on some of these things and screen better tenants and do some of those things. So
I wouldn't mind having,
Yeah, we
doing
do
something
have-
like that, I just don't think it's the city's responsibility to continue to do it. I think then you guys need to go.
That's all
We did
us.
set up.
I
a-
hosting it.
No, hosting, yeah.
Got the room. The only problem is that, you know, the people you have difficulty with aren't going to be the ones that show up.
But the people that would come are the people that would
That matter.
want,
No, I
that
should-
want
no.
to share and want
That want to help each other.
and need information,
That
or,
wasn't what I meant.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's-
Yeah.
Or
So-
even just new
Well,
people
there is
that
a,
want to.
there is a landlord-tenant commission, am I correct? It was
6:30
set up
now.
a few years ago.
there used to be one, I
Yeah.
don't know, I think that's
And the-
what you were talking about, Joe.
And the problem I had with
I
that
think it's gone.
was, it was not landlord-tenant commission, it catered to tenants only.
Oh, right.
The landlords were just kind of, sorry, you
We're the
know,
ones that
you get a
show up
bad
and get beat
tenant,
on?
that's not our problem.
So,
Anyway, we digress.
it's 6:30, doesn't mean anything, but I appreciate your time. Real quick, these folks, and then if they make a recommendation, the Board of Aldermen would consider, this is just really a change in form, this inspection. And I'm hearing what you say about it, and I'll give it at least a month before using it. But the ordinance, you know, adopting the manufactured housing code into ordinance, and then adopting the addition to, I stuck it in the dangerous building section, it doesn't have to be there, but basically prehab mobile homes, these would be ordinance changes. So besides the things that we talked about tonight, we talked about giving renters a pamphlet on kind of maintenance and upkeep and inspections, a better timeline for starting the process for abandoned homes, and better definitions, including of a mobile home itself. That, you know, that having proper skirting and boarded windows and a properly kept lot would not qualify it for being abandoned as long as there was a time frame and a plan for repair. That instead of having a qualified HVAC, whatever we want to word that, come out, we could also accept the gas company's inspection, and that those things will be kept on file and good until the owner changes. And then we talked a little bit here about landlords meeting, but beyond those things, and you can certainly give me feedback the rest of, or for the month of September, is there anything else on these documents that you really like or really don't like? I understand it's holding you guys more accountable.
We're definitely accountable, that's for sure.
It's a smaller issue,
Or this.
Yes.
but screens must be provided.
Window screens?
Yeah, okay, got a lot of windows. They get busted out all the time, and most of my windows do not have screens. Now, I usually try to make one window in each room have where they can open and have a screen in it. But to replace all the screens, that's another big expense, and then most of my tenants never open their windows anyway. They black them out and they never open a window. But anyway, just a suggestion, maybe a little compromise on some of these
So-
issues.
When you're talking about window screens, can they use the ones like you go by the hardware store? The little one where you close the window down to the top of it?
sliding screens.
Well, like to the back of the pickup?
No, like my building, several buildings that are historical buildings, but, so my buildings don't have storm windows or screens. So the hardware stores carry them, it's a little screen in a wooden frame typically. It's about so big, and you just close the window down on top of that. And they're pretty minimal. as far
Oh,
as-
so you don't have a screen on the whole window, you
No,
just
No,
have
it's
a...
just not to where they can open it.
Yeah, the
If they
window,
wanna
the
open a
window just
window, they
closes
put
down
that
on
in
top
there.
of
Kind of
it.
like the old air conditioner box.
That's- pardon?
Okay.
Kind of like a window unit air conditioner without the air conditioner.
Yeah, exactly. And I didn't know if
I just want to be clear
that's,
that when I get an inspection that, oh, well, you don't have screens on all your windows, now I gotta go do all that.
and that's what I'm asking you, Dave, is that acceptable?
Or is this, I mean, we can talk about this more, but
Yeah.
you can talk tonight too. It says missing or broken glass shall be replaced. I don't
Yes.
think that's negotiable.
No.
And screens shall be provided.
Right.
So I interpret that as, he just said, if you just have one screen, I could use that for the whole trailer.
Or like how she said, yeah, she
Well,
provides one per room.
That's how I would
Well, I mean,
interpret it.
One per bedroom,
For me,
one
I-
living area, I think that would work.
It doesn't bother me to have windows with no screens, but that's,
So instead of us counting screens, should we just,
If they
or
have-
would you rather us, Mike, say, where are your two screens?
Or if we have a window with a screen in each room,
right.
you
Yes.
know. That was the old HUD. When I used to have HUD, they said you have to have at least one window in each room that has a screen that can be open.
We'll do that.
It wasn't every window.
Okay.
One room has it.
One in each room.
Yeah.
Does a screen door count? If there's a window and a screen door, does a screen door count
Yes,
as the screen?
I would say.
I don't have screen doors.
What do you do, how do you have to replace, well, I guess you're gonna have to. What do you do when you have people going around your mobile home park and they're stealing the storm window out of the top of the storm door?
What?
Yeah.
Get some cameras.
Yeah,
Yes, I would say get some
Please.
cameras.
Yeah.
Definitely.
They come back towards the middle.
Where do I go to buy a new window that goes in the top of that storm door?
Oh,
Because they're taking the frame and everything else.
Frame and everything.
Liberty Glass does a
Would
really
be your
great job.
best.
Yeah, but
They're-
they, well,
they're
see,
very
she would have to have the frame and all the
They're very
They
pins.
make the frames.
Oh, do they?
Yeah,
Oh,
they make the frames, they can like, yeah.
that's cool. I got one. A lot of
Anything else,
screens.
ladies
I
and
know.
gents?
Yeah.
Yes,
One
sir.
quick question, so currently, we do have the manufactured housing code, or we're going to adopt the international one?
This first one,
Yes.
we have the International Residential Code.
Yes.
This is an
Okay.
appendix to it that needs to be adopted, in my opinion.
This is probably the one that might scare me the most. So any modifications to a post HUD,
Any trailer.
yeah, is going to fall under the ICC mobile home code. So probably a big old book about maybe that big.
No, the 18 pages that Martin made copies of before. I don't know if it's 18 pages, don't quote me. Mr. Dalton has a copy of it here, and I have a copy here too, Joe.
I got a copy.
Okay.
And we don't have to adopt it verbatim. If you think that
That's
there
correct.
are local amendments that need to be made,
There are amendments to the building code in the city.
I guess my question is, why do you feel the need that we have to adopt it?
So the city has better enforcement, and better ground to stand on.
Okay, but if there are landlords who are trying to do the proper thing, according to the city, with our own leases and what we expect from our renters. And, now where was I going with that? I feel like the inspection that you have in place right now, to me, that's fine. It says everything that you need to have with a mobile home to be able to get it inspected. But to me, all this extra stuff seems like it's complicating it even more for the landlord who is doing it right in the first place. And it seems like the landlord who is actually trying to do the right thing is being penalized because there are other landlords out there who aren't doing it. So you're damned if you do and you're damned if you don't.
Well, that's why you're adopting the international thing, because there are some bad landlords out there.
Right.
There've always been bad landlords.
If you're already doing it right,
But
then
we're adding
it shouldn't be
some,
much of an imposition on you then.
well, just
see
some
what
of the
I'm
things
saying?
I
But
stated before.
And
more
you're
extra
right,
things.
it's holding the ones that aren't doing things right or
This is-
whatever, it's holding them accountable. Just for,
My
I mean, for the
opinion is-
safety of their tenants, you know.
Right.
My opinion is what we've had in place hasn't worked. So I'm just trying to make those things stronger. I mean, some of you have trailers that are fine, mobile homes that are fine, but there are some out there that aren't. And people have been not technically evicted, but evicted because they were put into a mobile home that was inappropriate to be occupied. And there are several others out there that are close to the same shape. And this gives the city, the community development department, stronger ground to stand on to keep those citizens and children, in many, many cases, safe, healthy, and secure.
So you think that's going to straighten the bad landlords out, just adding more?
Do you have another suggestion?
I mean, have you tried these bad landlords to get with the rules that you have now, the codes or whatever? That hadn't worked? Or
I've dealt with some of them.
That hadn't worked?
Nope.
I don't think all those are
And I mean-
either. No.
Mr. and Mrs. Gegg and Ms. Foff, not so much Mr. Beckerman or Mr. Steiger or Mr. Dalton, but have we had any horrible conversations in the
No.
past year?
Too bad.
But have you had to make some repairs on your
Yeah,
mobile
sure, we
homes?
would have done them anyway.
Yes.
That's what I'm saying.
It's just all the little extra things that are going to add up to more money. So I'm just saying, we might look at some compromises, case by case or whatever.
Send me your suggestions.
You're gonna apply this to existing homes, not new homes.
Is this just mobile homes, or this is apartments or houses as well?
No.
Nothing we're talking about tonight is apartments or
This
houses.
is just mobile homes, existing mobile homes?
And for the most part, pre-HUD mobile homes. But this would be applied to mobile homes.
Not new ones brought into the city.
Manufactured housing uses dwelling. So any manufactured housing used as a dwelling. So this would even apply to modular homes, but I mean, there aren't a whole lot around town, and it would apply though.
I'm not in favor of it. I just think you're gonna, anytime you want to do some work on it, it's gonna, I mean, it talks about piers and foundation, it talks about, permits and retention of plans and, I mean, it's really down in the weeds. And
This-
I have a bad feeling, just like you said, you're not gonna be here for forever. The next inspector and ordinance,
Keep in mind that all that stuff, it talks about permits and inspections. It says the same thing in the IRC and the IBC, International Building Code, International Residential Code. It's not anything more than a home or a apartment has to deal with right now. It's not, I see, where Joe's going is it's added regulation, and I get that. I get that. But these pages don't do anything more than we do to a standard house right now. I'm not gonna, if you come to me and you say, and again, I won't be here forever, but if you come to me right now and say, I want to add a room to my house, I mean, you can't really add one to a trailer, but we don't require you to submit architectural drawings for a residential permit. Commercial's different, and I wouldn't ask for you, if you came to me and said, I want to, you're not going to, but add a room to my trailer, you would have to give me a drawing, but you could draw that or have your friend who has a little bit of architectural knowledge draw it up for you.
But I mean, like on this one, Dave, section 8, exterior stairways and ramps will provide egress to the public, shall comply with the applicable provision of code. Right, so if you have a bad handrail, and it's not wide enough to this code, instead of just repairing that and putting on a new 2x4 that was already there to get it to what our current standard is, you're going to want that landlord or to replace that to the right height, to the right width. So it's, you know, instead of grandfathering this in, you're going to go back to this code. And so when they try to change anything, you're going to have to go back to, you're going to have to go to this new code.
Is that a bad thing?
It's,
I mean, to ask for the right handrail or the right number of balusters, or... I understand where you're coming from.
yeah.
But it's really,
I understand there's a cost involved.
there's really not much difference in that and then the one for residential, so. And like when I do my, have ones in my apartments, you
I
have
get
houses.
that, right? But I get twice as much rent out of my houses as I get out of my
I get that, right.
right? So, so it's really tough when you're, you know, at best you might make $100 a month after all things are paid. And so you're just, so if I replace a handrail and make it safe, but it's not 14 inches, it's 12 inches or, you know, 16, you know, it's like, and this now gives them the power to come back and really start screwing with the landlord.
It's a lawsuit.
Post-HUD mobile home is moved in today and placed on piers or a slab.
Especially,
It requires us to inspect it. It's installation.
yeah.
But you don't have a code.
Exactly.
So if they put in piers and a foundation,
We don't have any standard by
Yeah.
which to judge that for. We can't ensure proper tie downs are installed.
Well, the landlord would do that.
Well, they have the
Well,
obligation
that-
to do.
The landlord would make sure that that mobile home is set
To
up.
count on every landlord in
That's what we
town
did.
would be,
That's what my father-in-law did. He made
okay,
sure
but you're
it was
saying,
up
well,
to
the
his
landlord would
specs.
do it. For the city to stand back and say, well, the landlords take care of it. Some, not all.
He had to make sure, he made sure that they were on bricks or, not bricks,
Blocks.
concrete blocks or
What
runner,
standard
concrete
did he use?
runners. It didn't have to be a whole concrete pad, it could be runners. And tie downs into the ground.
Okay, he did that.
No, he didn't do it. He made the,
You know, what I'm saying is, he made sure it happened.
yeah, and.
But
we
not
fo-
everybody
we tried
does
to
that.
Follow his example.
But see, that's required. It's not something that he did, because they did, because they wanted to. That's a regulation, they had to do that.
Correct.
I don't think she's realizing that he was following the regulation.
Oh,
okay.
She's saying that,
We went above and beyond.
yeah.
No.
And then you can go from under the bottom floor.
Other questions or concerns?
I've got to do a soil investigation inspection too. So, I mean, that's,
We're not going to
No.
require a soil investigation.
it says it right here.
Joe.
It says it in the IRC and the IBC too.
Dave, it's right here though.
Yep.
So when you adopt it, you say that.
I think you're being a little hyperbolic.
Yes. A whole
I'm just
lot.
telling you,
I am responding.
it's there.
As it is in the code books that we've adopted for every home except mobile homes in the city already.
So why adopt it if we're not going to enforce it? I'll turn
It
the
doesn't
question
say,
back on you.
that's incorrect. It does not say that every house has to be submit a soil inspection. Did you read it, or did you just read soil inspection?
Well, yeah, no, I read that it said that, not every one, but if you're going to go in and adjust the,
I believe it says at the,
I lost it now. I think it's on page.
you can, what page?
Back at page 3, 816.
Back at page 3, 816.
The classification of the soil at each manufactured home site shall be determined when required by the building official. Pretty loosey-goosey to me. Want it?
God's sakes.
I gotta
I
go
could
get it.
pick apart many an ordinance and call it loosey-goosey, or a federal statute, or a state statute. It doesn't say you have to,
I think we've got the classification.
Doesn't this give you an out right there?
For all of the city. It's
Yes.
in the International Residential Building Code,
and
and
it-
they're Class D. If you think that that's wrong,
My home site, they brought in, actually Harry did it himself, brought in 120 loads of soil from outside city limits.
yeah.
So
You
there's a
have a
situation where we don't know what the
non-conforming
soil classification
It's
is.
going to be assumed to be Class D.
So what kind of soil is it?
If you want it, if you think it's Class C,
And I built on it.
just tell us.
also says at the top, the provisions contained in this appendix are not mandatory unless specifically referenced in the adopting ordinance, which Martin alluded to earlier. If you want to take the soil part out, you can make that suggestion, because 14 months in position, I have yet to require a soil test.
Take it out, take it out.
Anybody who designs a house is designing it for Class D soils, because that's what the building code
Right.
says you're supposed to do.
Right.
I don't
Well,
know
for
how
mobile
relevant
homes.
that is.
For mobile homes, because you're gonna end up having to
Taking it out
have
doesn't seem like it's gonna,
piers done, or
you know, use a
runners.
different peering.
You have to dig it differently.
Tie down system.
Take it out for mobile homes. Because it has him as an excavator.
We're into the weeds here.
Oh,
You want to do that.
Any other questions? And again, just because you leave here tonight doesn't mean you can't send me something or call me.
I'll be calling you.
I'm off on Monday. It is Labor Day, by the way.
When can you get an inspector to inspect what days of the week?
Currently, Tuesday,
Yeah.
Wednesday, Thursday. In the new budget that has yet to be approved, I've asked for 5 days, not 40 hours a week, but 5 days. An expansion of those hours to benefit
Any
that.
particular time frame during the
If you
day?
think that's a good idea, now would be a good time to call your alderman.
Yeah. If you think it'd be a good idea to have a building inspector available 5 days a week, let them know. But it would probably be in the morning. That's when we get the most calls. It isn't in the afternoon. It's 8 to noon, and he'd probably be like 8 to 1, 8 to 2.
Okay, so as of right now, we're using the inspection sheet that you gave me the last time I was in City Hall, and that's what I've been following. So as of right now, that is still kosher.
Oh yeah, none of this is,
If this goes into effect, then I'm gonna have to redo that inspection of that mobile home?
the one, the
Or will it be
Exhibit B,
grandfathered in?
there's no grandfather. The Exhibit B incorporates that one that you're doing and adds, I don't know, a half a dozen additional things.
So then the inspector would have to come back again.
Just
Not
when
if
you
you've
get
already been
occupancy.
inspected.
Yeah.
I'm saying you're not grandfathered
the
in
old
forever.
rule?
If
By the
you
old
had one
inspection?
done and it's good until the next one comes.
Okay.
And then it would be this one.
And at the earliest, this ordinance won't come in effect till October, at the earliest?
This commission has to make a recommendation to the board, then they would have to have 2 readings. I couldn't give you a timetable.
It would be more than a month easily,
Yes.
though.
Oh, okay.
I'm not gonna even ask these folks to come back together for another month. So that would be
And
a.
honestly, I think it's a complicated enough issue that there should be a work session before you ask them to consider the ordinances.
Yeah,
Board of Aldermen
and
work
talk
Or
about
session.
an Alderman
again,
study
too.
session, rather than just putting it on the table one night and asking them to vote for it.
Talk again with us too. Have us come in and discuss it with you again too.
You can come in,
You
I wanted
end up
this
putting
one,
it in
I wanted
legal
this one
format.
specifically for you all, and tenants, I invited tenants too. But you're invited to come to any meeting you want to come to. If we have a work session on anything, yes. All right? Thank you all.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Did y'all get sufficient